presentarles a nuestro siguiente conferencista. Él es Shaun Tabrizzi. Es uno de los desarrolladores principales de Polkadot, una plataforma Web3 Cloud de nueva generación. Lleva más de 7 años desarrollando en el ecosistema blockchain. También es profesor de desarrollo de software y defensor de las tecnologías Web3. Anteriormente, trabajó en Microsoft en su plataforma Azure Cloud y estudió física y matemáticas en la Universidad de California en Santa Bárbara. Por favor, démosle un fuerte aplauso a Shaun Tabrizzi.
Hello, hello. Hey, everyone. I'm so excited to be here in Talentland in Guadalajara. To be honest, there's so many of you here. I'm very excited, also a little bit nervous. Is the presentation up here? Okay. So yeah, let's just get started. Let's talk about the future of Web3. First, my name is Shaun Tabrizzi. As we talked about here, before I was working in blockchain, I was working at Microsoft on their Azure cloud platform. For the last 7 years, I've been doing blockchain development as a lead developer of Polkadot and also an educator in the Web3 blockchain space. I want to talk about the growing divide in the blockchain ecosystem. I think if you're familiar with blockchain or Web3, you've heard all of these promises. Things about how we can create a better financial system, systems with less trust, without central authority. But in the news, it's been very different. With blockchain, you've been hearing about corruption and hacks and rug pulls and meme coins and all these other things. I think that this is really coming from a divide between the blockchain ecosystem, between long-term thinking and short-term results. There are people actually trying to build scalable, decentralized systems that are actually trying to use light clients and trustless bridges to actually make it easier and more secure for you to access these blockchain systems, that are actually trying to create sustainable economics and change the status quo. But there are also systems that are just trying to take advantage of the technology, trying to take advantage of the lack of knowledge of the blockchain space. And these short-term results, they're trying to basically extract money, extract value from people who don't understand what this technology is actually trying to do. They're using small validator sets, N of M multisigs, and even working with venture capital to extract money from you and put money into the hands of people who are taking advantage of the technology. These short-term results are very painful and bad for the ecosystem. And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that there's a misunderstanding between these different terminology. Cryptocurrency, blockchain, DeFi, Web3. In the way that we actually use these terms, they are all kind of interchangeable. But in fact, these terms are not the same. Cryptocurrency is just a resource, one of the resources you can actually create using blockchain technology. Blockchain itself is a technology that allows you to create verifiable, decentralized systems. DeFi is just one of the verticals that we can actually use to build things in the blockchain space. But in fact, all of these things, the promise that you've actually been told about what we can do with blockchain is around Web3. Web3 is a revolution in the way we interact with the world. And so the goals of this presentation is to remind you the meaning of Web3, to convince you that we need a decentralized cloud revolution, and to show you how Polkadot is leading that revolution today. First, what is Web3? Well, Web3, in simple terms, is the technological embodiment of less trust and more truth. Why do we need that? Let's talk about less trust. Well, why less trust? You must have heard this term a million times. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We have seen over and over in our time how central authorities have actually taken advantage of the individual person. For example, in 2008 with the global financial crisis, we had the collapse of the major financial banks where they basically gambled our money. And when their gambles failed, the government and central authorities bailed them out with no repercussion to CEOs or VPs that ran these banking systems. Then in 2010, when we were trying to release information explaining all this corruption in the world, for example, via WikiLeaks, governments went and actually censored them, both financially and through their freedom of speech. And then in 2013, the Snowden revelations showed us that governments like the NSA are actually spying on us. They're actually using and collecting our information without our consent. And this is just within 5 years of our current lifetime. If we look in the past and in the present, we'll see over and over that history has shown us that we cannot trust centralized authorities. And this is why we need Web3, because Web3 provides more truth. Web3 is a set of systems which are decentralized, verifiable, self-sovereign, interoperable, and privacy-preserving. They're built on platforms which are open, public, borderless, neutral, and censorship-resistant. And when you use applications and services on Web3, those applications are resilient, general, performant, coherent, and accessible. It is these properties that allow us to get a better world, a world with less trust and more truth. So really, Web3 is a revolution in the way that we interact with the world. But the problem is that Web3 and DeFi have always been confused with each other. People are telling you that basically DeFi is all that we can achieve with Web3, or that Web3 is DeFi, but this is not the case. There are many other verticals in which we can actually innovate, in which we can actually change the status quo. There's many places in our world where we still rely on central authority, where blockchain technology and Web3 can actually innovate and make the world better. And I want to mention that really DeFi is only using a small piece of what a blockchain can actually achieve. In this case, it's only using a distributed ledger technology, basically a distributed spreadsheet for how we manage accounts and finances. And that many DeFi products built today are actually not using many of the properties of Web3. For example, stablecoins like USDT, USDC, they are not decentralized, they're not self-sovereign, they're not open or neutral, they're not resilient or general. Web3 provides all these properties, but the products that are built on Web3 need to actually use them as well. So, what kind of world could we build with real Web3 technologies? The first thing I would want to target is things like proof of personhood. I'm sure everyone in this room is familiar with how much AI has been innovating and growing recently, right? It's been harder and harder not only to know what is real, but who is real, right? Bots have been all over the place, imitating humans. And with AI innovations, it's going to be really, really hard to understand who is a real person and who is a bot. Using systems like Web3, we're able to achieve Sybil resistance. And this is one of the hardest problems that we can solve in the blockchain space today, which is actually identifying who is real from who is a bot. And once we have things like Sybil resistance, we're able to actually create Web3 systems which are not only cheap, but can actually be free. You can access these systems freely because you are a person, because it is in your rights as a human to access these decentralized systems. So, as you can see, as more people use AI, we'll need unique proofs of personhood. And then building on that idea, once we have personhood, we can start imagining building voting systems on top of our Web3 platforms. This will allow us to create direct voting systems where anyone can verify the results of a vote or an election without needing to trust central authorities, where we can make decisions both on-chain, our digital metaverse, or off-chain in our real world, where again, results are securely verified using cryptography and math, not using incumbents and governments. And then finally, the pinnacle of what we can actually try to achieve with these Web3 systems is whole new forms of societies. Things like network states. These are societies built without physical borders. They are united by shared values, digital coordination, and economic alignment. Web3 systems will provide these kinds of societies with resilience, the ability to organize, govern, and grow, and eventually make impact into the real world. And so you can understand, to build this kind of future, we need more than a distributed ledger. We need more than DeFi. We need to actually build a decentralized world computer. Our world runs on computers, and we need to actually create platforms where we can access these kinds of computers in a decentralized, secure way. And I want to say that the path towards the decentralized computer has already been laid out for us if we look at our history. 75 years ago, we had the early computers coming to space, where basically a computer would take up a whole warehouse, right? It was very expensive to access, and basically was only used by the top firms, mostly for finance. Very expensive, very hard to manage. As computers got better, businesses started integrating it into their own individual pipelines. They started creating their own on-premises servers, creating business-specific servers for their applications. But again, this was not scalable because it took a lot of time to upgrade, update, and manage those local servers, which is why today, most people do not have an on-premises server. They use cloud servers. They have providers who will provide cloud services cheaply, affordably, and scalably so that you can build your businesses. But the problem is that these cloud servers are centralized. They are not resilient like what we need to build a better future. Thankfully, in 2010 with Bitcoin, we had created a new technology which could actually create a more resilient computing platform. But we can, again, follow the history as it was in the past. Early blockchains like Bitcoin were very expensive to use. They're very slow, and they're mostly focused on finance. We've seen more recently that lots of new blockchains have been coming up. All these business-specific blockchains, which are more scalable, but again, require you to launch more and more blockchain systems. This itself doesn't scale. It does not make sense to have to launch another blockchain for every single use case. So what is the answer? The answer is the decentralized cloud revolution. We need to create a platform which acts as a cloud compute platform where anyone can access scalable, decentralized, and permissionless computing power at a fraction of the cost. And this is what Polkadot is doing. Polkadot is the next evolution of the blockchain landscape. If Bitcoin created a calculator and Ethereum created the first computer, you can think of Polkadot as creating the first cloud server for Web3. And I want to leave this idea in your mind. Polkadot will do to Web3 what AWS did to Web2. We want to make it fast, cheap, easy, and scalable to launch Web3 applications into the Web3 cloud. And this is how we really think we can achieve a world with less trust and more truth. And again, at the heart of the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 lies resilience, right? Web 2 systems today are not resilient against censorship, single points of failure, hacks, security breaches, regulatory overreach, or more. That we have a working compute platform, but we want one that's more resilient, one that is in control of the individual persons, one that is decentralized. So how do you build a Web3 cloud? Well, the first thing we need to focus on is not building a blockchain, but building a computer. If we're always trying to build another blockchain, we won't actually innovate. What we actually want to be focusing on in this space is thinking about how do we build a decentralized computer and using blockchain as a technology to help us achieve that, right? Not as the end game, but as a means to the end of building a computer. The next thing we need to do is we need to focus on block space, not transactions per second. It won't matter in our future if we can transfer $1 a million times per second. What actually matters is that we build a platform where you can launch any kind of application or idea that you can think of. That we have flexible resources where you can actually build and launch your idea, not limited by, again, the infrastructure technology. And finally, we want to make it available to everyone. This not only means making it cheap, but making it easy to use. Anyone should be able to deploy their ideas as simply and easily as people are able to deploy websites and cloud services today, but on a Web3 cloud. Now, thankfully, we've been stewarded, kind of forwarded by this process and this idea by Dr. Gavin Wood. If you don't know Dr. Gavin Wood, he is the co-founder and the original CTO of Ethereum. He's the inventor of the EVM, which is the virtual machine language, the virtual machine platform where you run smart contracts on Ethereum. He's the author of the Yellow Paper, which is a technical specification for how you build the Ethereum network. And he implemented the first Ethereum client. And in Polkadot, he has been continuing his vision for creating this ubiquitous world computer, capable of executing anything and everything with resilience. And so I want to show you the architecture that both Gav and the rest of the Polkadot ecosystem has developed to actually build this Web3 cloud. First, Polkadot is the world's first multi-core decentralized computer. And when I say multi-core, I mean the same thing as multi-core for your computer or your phone. We have hundreds of execution cores allowing you to run small applications on a single core or large applications across multiple cores. The exact same way you scale your computers today is how we're scaling our decentralized computer. And because of that, we're able to achieve parallelization. So we're able to execute multiple applications and services in parallel across our multiple cores. And this is how Polkadot primarily scales, through data and execution sharding, through parallel execution of these services over our multiple cores. And we also provide this idea of shared security. The basic idea here is that it is not enough to just launch your application on a Web3 platform. If you're using something like Ethereum, it does not inherently mean that your application is secure. Polkadot actually provides natively economic security to all the applications and services that run on it. That means if you build an application, if you're a single developer running an application on Polkadot, you inherit all of the security of our multi-billion-dollar network with your platform. This ensures security and scalability on these Web3 services. We also have native interoperability. Polkadot is not designed to trap you within our ecosystem. We want to talk with and interoperate. We want to communicate and collaborate with other ecosystems. We have built trustless bridges to other ecosystems like Ethereum and Bitcoin, so that if you want to build an app that accesses Bitcoin, that accesses Ethereum, or the resources on that platform, that you can do so trustlessly and securely. And also, we provide data availability. This is one of the key resources you need to actually scale your application. The reason I mention this is because today, when you actually launch your app on most platforms, you need to go access data availability from another network. You need to actually go somewhere else and get additional data availability to scale out your blockchain. On Polkadot, we provide it natively and at no additional cost. We have it focused in mind for you to scale and build out your applications by providing an all-in-one solution for you to launch your services. And so what have we achieved with this architecture? Well, Polkadot is by far the fastest network by TPS. You can see orders of magnitude larger. And I'm not talking about theoretically or hypothetically. This is real-world testing on a live network. We have been able to achieve over 140,000 transactions per second using only 23% capacity. This means that we could probably achieve a 4x if we fully saturate the network. And this is far beyond what any other network has actually shown in real-world testing. Again, do not believe all the hype around what could hypothetically be done. This was actually tested in the real world. Polkadot is also the most resilient. The Nakamoto coefficient measures how many independent entities would need to collude to actually halt a blockchain. The bigger the number, the more decentralized, the more resilient the network is. And remember, with shared security, this decentralization and resilience goes back to your applications. When you run your application on Polkadot, you also get an order of magnitude more resilience than if you were to run it on any other platform. Polkadot also provides the highest bandwidth. Again, this is the data availability needed to scale out applications. Whereas you would need to, if you're running on Ethereum, go to another network to get the data availability. Polkadot provides more of it to you and all in one. Again, at no additional costs. And finally, we're able to achieve all of this with the lowest carbon footprint, with the most energy efficiency. And this is because we focused on scaling our protocol through technology, not through hardware. We're not just buying beefy computers and trying to make things run faster. We're using multi-core technology and a very advanced architecture to actually achieve the kinds of efficiency that you would expect. This is the same kinds of efficiency that your phone and your computer achieves. That's why they have multiple cores, right? They're able to achieve more battery life because they're actually designed more technologically advanced. We're not just trying to make things go with a faster hardware. And Polkadot runs mostly on consumer hardware. Already, 10 of the top 20 rollups are powered by the Polkadot cloud. And many of these teams are building things beyond DeFi. We have teams like Frequency, which is trying to innovate in the social networking space, create decentralized social profiles and graphs. We have Energy Web, which is trying to innovate in the energy sector, creating industry work packages. NeuroWeb, which is trying to create verifiable knowledge so you know how your AI is being trained. Mythos, which is a AAA gaming platform, allowing you access to game assets, ownership, and trading. And finally, things like Hyperbridge, which is allowing cross-ecosystem proofs so that you can access other ecosystems outside of Polkadot securely and without fear of hacks. And Polkadot is already securing over 40 million transactions per month across our diverse set of applications. And again, one of the key important factors here is that we are able to scale out these applications without increasing the transaction fees for the end users. You as a business can subsidize these fees so that your users will never have to see them. They can even use these platforms for free. Right? This is all due to the technology that we have in terms of using multiple cores and the way we scale out and actually allocate those cores to the different applications and services. And of course, we have in our cloud the same features that you would expect from any kind of cloud platform. That is pay-as-you-go model, so you can only use and pay for the resources you need, keeping costs low and predictable, while also having elastic scaling, meaning that you can access more resources dynamically and scale up or scale down to your needs. These are the exact kinds of things you would expect in a Web2 cloud and that we provide in our Web3 platform. And even though Polkadot is through the graphs, way ahead of its peers, we are continuing to innovate because the work is never done. JAM is our newest technical specification, a formal specification, which is going to provide order of magnitude improvements to our existing network. This specification is being implemented by 35 independent teams across 14 programming languages, all with one shared vision, a vision for a world with less trust and more truth. And Polkadot is being managed and run by a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. This is the group of people that anyone who owns DOT has the ability to vote and to make proposals to upgrade and control the network. We go through, in our open governance system, over 1,300 proposals every year, which are all trying to improve the network and also decide how we spend our treasury. We have over $125 million in our treasury that can help fund innovation and products in Web3. If you have a great idea that you want to build in the Web3 space, our open governance system, our DAO, can actually fund those ideas and make your dreams into reality. And of course, we understand that the Web3 space, the blockchain space, is very complicated. It's very new. So we've put a lot of effort into educating and helping people actually break out into the space. We've helped thousands of people actually learn and get jobs in the Web3 industry. So if you're someone who's in the Web2 space and you believe the mission that we have in terms of going and actually building a Web3 future, you can go to our booth, which is right over there, and you can actually learn about how you can sign up for classes in person or online to actually break out into the Web3 industry. And I hope with that you will join one of our 600 other teams building in our space, building Web3 solutions across a wide variety of verticals. Again, not just DeFi, not just finance, but actually changing the way that we do social networks, gaming, identity, AI, media. All of these different spaces and verticals can be innovated on with Web3 technology, right? And we can support you in helping build this better future. So I want to end saying, I don't think Web3 is bullshit. I think we hear a lot of bad things about blockchain right now, but that's not how it has to be forever. There are people who are actually building with long-term thinking in mind, right? You need to ignore all of the hype, all the short-term thinking. You need to follow the mission. If you believe that there's a world needed with less trust and more truth, one where we can escape central authority, one where we can be more resilient as an ecosystem, where we can create new societies beyond what we understand today, beyond borders, then I think you can believe that the mission of Polkadot is exactly to do that. So I hope that you can use our technology, join our community, build in our ecosystem, and be part of that revolution. If you want to see our slides, we have a QR code here. I think there's also a Spanish translation as well. But really, thank you so much for listening. I hope that independent of anything, that we can actually build towards this future. And again, I hope that all of you can participate in that with us. Thank you so much.